Hi, this is Jerome Joseph going live. I'm very excited to be here. Welcome to 2021. Now, the reason why I'm doing this live is specifically for one very good reason. Now, this past couple of days, I've had many people picking up the phone, dropping me emails and asking me questions around branding. And one of the key fundamental questions that they've asked me is this: Jerome, how can we win in the marketplace? How can we grow our brand? How can we stand out in the marketplace? So what I'm going to do today is to give you 5-step process that we take when it comes to growing and building brands. And this is a process that I use in my consulting. It's a process that I use not just for the corporate brands or the product brands, but also for personal brands. And it's a process that I hope that you can take away from by really looking at a strategic approach towards brand building. So in this 5-step process, which I'm going to share with you, it consists of the 5D approach. And there is the discover stage, the define stage, the develop stage, the deliver stage, and the drive stage. So today, I am going to take you through our 5-step process and for help to get you to start thinking about how you can use this 5-step process for your organization, for your products, for your personal brand. You ready? Let's get going. Let's start by looking at the first stage. Now, the first stage is the discover stage. Now, again, when I sometimes think about the discover stage, for me, many brands that I go in and speak to and talk to spend a lot of time in the tactical approach to branding, meaning they go out there and they put lots of social media posts, they go out there and they put content out there, and they think that's branding. Stop, that's not branding, right? It's part of branding, but it's not branding. What branding means is for you to really understand and know your brand, know what your competition is all about, knowing your audiences. So at this stage, I like to call this the discover stage. Now, what happens in the discover stage is very simple. Now, I'm going to simplify it for you, and you can start doing this for yourselves. I want you in the discover stage to start doing 3 things. Now, what are the 3 things? Number 1, start by analyzing your own brand. Look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses, look at the opportunities, look at the gaps for your own brand. So that's the first thing that I'm going to get you to start doing. Number 2, it is very important for you to look at competition. Look at what competition is saying or doing. Now, I want you to imagine this, right? Imagine you go to a shelf and you're going to buy a bottle of water on a shelf. And as you reach out to the shelf, you want to be able to see all the different competitors and be able to say, okay, based on all this competition, if I'm going to put my bottle of water, mineral water that I'm selling, how can I stand out against all of them? And that's the premise of looking at your competition, is how can you outperform them? How can you stand out visually through messaging? The third thing is to talk to your customers. So really deep dive and really look at your customers, asking them strategic questions. For example, what are your needs? What are your pain points? How can I best serve you? Many a time, and we're going to talk a little bit about this as we go along, is that your brand solution needs to fit the needs of your customers. And the more you understand those needs, those desires, those pain points, the more you can solve them. So that is the discover stage. And of course, I'm simplifying it for you because there's an entire methodology, there are frameworks, there are tools that you can use. But I want you to start thinking about this. And this can be easy if you can't get a consultant to help you do this. You could do it very simply by asking yourself simple questions, right? First, looking at deep diving and analyzing yourself. You could always go out there and look at what competition is doing, and you can ask questions to your customers like, tell me what you want, right? Tell me what are your needs. So that is the first stage. So let me go to the second stage. And the second stage is called define. Define your brand. Now, how does define look like? And I'm going to share with you very quickly some of the key things that you need to look at the define stage. So once you understand your customers, once you know your customers, you know what competition is doing, you know yourself, you then go and you start to define specific goals that you want for your brand. Sometimes when I speak to personal brands, or even I speak to organizational brands, and I go, what do you want to achieve from the branding? And they do not have very clear strategic goals. And that's the first thing you need to do. The next thing that you need to do is you need to look at your various segments. Now, branding is very strategic. Branding is designed for you to be very targeted. And often, again, when I go in and I work with organizations, I tell them, who do you want to focus on? And they go, everybody. You can't focus on everybody unless you have unlimited budget. So if you have limited resources, then you want to make able to look at the segments that you want to target and be able to do the third thing, which is how can I solve the problems of this particular segments? And that is the second stage when it comes to what's your brand process. Now let's go to the third stage. And your third stage is developing. So you've got all this data of information, you know what your goals are, you know who your segment is. Now it is where you are going to go in and you are going to develop your brand strategy. And to do that, I am going to share with you some key things that you need to consider. Now, there are a lot of things down here. And in this live segment, I may not have time to go through every single thing, but I'm going to try to sum up some key strategic aspects for your brand that you can start to consider. So in the develop stage, there are a few things, right? The first thing is you need to get your brand essence, your brand DNA. You got to get that right. What are your values? What are your vision? What are your purpose? What is the promise that you have? And that needs to be very clear. Then you need to look at how you can differentiate your brand. That's where the positioning component comes in. How do I position my brand in a cluttered marketplace against my competition, leveraging on my strengths and being able to meet the needs of my customers? Remember, you did that early on in the discover stage. You found out all that information. From the positioning and from your DNA, that's when you have clear message. But the message is an overarching message that now needs to be customized to the different segments that you're in. Now, if you have one segment, that's great. One message is perfect. But if you have multiple segments, then you want to be looking at specifically customizing those messages to the segments. The other thing I'm going to talk about is your brand personality. So this is where you really develop who you are. So imagine if your brand were a human being, right? What would you say? How would you sound? What would you wear? So the personality would be things that you could develop. Now, there are other aspects of the strategy component when it comes to your, like, how would this fit into your business model? How would this fit into the different products that you have? And I'm not going to go into it today. But at this stage, it is very important that you at least do three things. Number one, please make sure you get your brand DNA, who you are, what you stand for. Number two, please position yourself, right? Think of how you can position yourself and how you would be differentiated against your competition. And number three, get your personality, get your brand personality right. So let's go on to the next stage. And the next stage is going to be the deliver your brand stage. Now, how would this look like? Now, there's a few things that you want to develop, you want to deliver during this stage. So in this stage, I tell people there are a few things that you should start considering and start doing. Number one is to start thinking about how you can deliver your brand across your various channels. Now, the channels, again, it could be online channels, it could be offline channels, like, for example, a trade exhibition. So once you identify the different channels, and some people call it touch points, then you want to think about how you can organically grow this or how you can grow this from a paid perspective. The next thing you need to start to deliver is content. And one of the things that I get my clients to do is start creating content which you're going to use in your channels. And finally, start to also create tools that you can use, assets that you can use, marketing collaterals, brochures, name cards, Facebook ads, and so on, right? So all these are templates and tools that you can use. Now, creating all these assets is going to help you deliver your brand in a very powerful way. Now we come to the final stage of this, and that is the driving your brand. Now I want to urge a caution, right? So Again, when I work with organizations, many organizations come straight to this stage where they start putting out campaigns and they start putting out ads. But before you get here, please make sure that you work on the earlier 4 stages. So let's go to driving your brand. So in your drive the brand stage, there's a few things that you need to consider. So in this stage, of course, you have now created all the assets that you need to deliver your brand. But here is where you really need to drive your brand. And there are 3 things that I want you to start thinking about. Number 1 is, how can you amplify your brand? What are ways where customers can find, for example, I'm sure you've seen this, right? You've gone to a website and people give you a free white paper. So that's a lead magnet, as an example. So how can you plant those leads and generate leads for your brand? Number 2, how can you build credibility? If you notice, I do this very often. I always talk about the fact that I'm ranked number 2 in the world. Now, I say this not to boast, but really to use it as a credibility tool for my own brand. Now, there are other things that I use from a credibility perspective, and I use this credibility technique called credibility by numbers. So I talk about my 24 years of experience. I talk about me working with clients in 34 countries. I talk about working and consulting with more than 1,000 brands. And I use these numbers across many of my marketing collaterals. And that's how I position my personal brand. So credibility is extremely important at this stage. And how can you create credibility so that you can build trust? Also, this is the platform where you start doing all your brand activities across the channels. So you've identified your channels in the previous stage. This is where you start having your campaigns, you start putting your assets across all these different channels. Then also at this stage is where you may want to create specific sales funnels, where people can come into your funnel, where you can acquire new customers. And finally, at this stage is that you need to look at how you can automate a lot of this process from the brand perspective. So for example, when I speak to personal brands or speak to organizations, they do this, today's a good day and I think I'm going to put something out there in the marketplace. And there are many ways when you can automate your brand so that this information goes out on an automated perspective. Also, when you're sending out, for example, one key thing is when you're sending out emails or marketing emails to your customers, you could think of ways that you can automate those emails. So when someone behaves in a certain way, when they click your email link, it triggers an action. So it could be, for example, another email that goes out them to thank them for triggering that action. Or it could be a notification email that goes to your salespeople to let them know that someone has clicked through your email marketing. So my name is Jerome Joseph, and thank you for being part of this 5-step process that I've just shared with you. Now I know it looks, complicated, but really branding is not rocket science. If you spend time, number 1, discovering who you are, looking at your competition, looking at your customers, it was going to give you a lot of data that you can use in your branding efforts. Number 2, being able to define who you are speaking to and being able to create brand goals so that when you go into brand building, you know what you want to achieve. Number 3 is being able to develop a clear brand strategy. Specifically, as I said, what's your brand DNA? What's your differentiator and positioning in the marketplace? How do you look? How do you sound? Number 4 is being able to really look at delivering the brand. And you do that by looking at what are the channels that I need to deliver my brand? What are the assets that I need to create so that I can get my message out there? What's the kind of content that I need to put out? And finally, drive. Drive is the continuous process. Drive is when you need to really look at what you can do to build credibility for your brand. What you can do to kind of pull customers into your funnel, narrow it down so that you can acquire leads and convert these leads. Now, if you are a Singapore-based company, by the way, and if you're listening to this, we do this for you through our consulting approach. And there is a grant for this. So if you're an SME, there is a grant. It's called the Enterprise Development Grant that helps you do all these things. If you're an organization and you need help I would love to help you. We have a program that we help organizations using this 5D framework. So we can come into your organization, sit down with you, deliver a program to help you understand this 5D process and apply it for your own organization. If you're an individual, you're a personal brand, and you need help, yes, we also will help you, right? So the 5D process works on personal brands, and we could spend a couple of days with you, really taking you through this and helping you with your brand, or through one of our personal brand coaching programs. So I'm excited for 2021, and I truly believe that 2020 is past us, and this 2021 is a time where you need to be aggressive in the marketplace, where you need to look at really building your brand. Our 5D approach works. We have used this for multiple organizations all around the world, and it works, but it needs the effort from you. You need to invest your time. You need to really sit down and map out your brand. And I truly believe that you will be on the journey to building a world-class brand. So my name is Jerome Joseph, and thank you for being part of this. I'm going to put my email right down here. So if you, at any point of time, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and come into our, I'm going to be putting out a lot more videos like this, but email me at jerome@thebrandtheater.com or jerome@jeromejoseph.com. I would love to share with you, really good insights when it comes to branding and how you can win the marketplace. Oh, by the way, I am going to be releasing our new e-learning online program for branding to help you as well in your journey. So look out for that. So my name is Jerome Joseph, wishing you the best, wishing you success in building your world-class brand. Best of luck in 2021.